Hello, everybody. Welcome to AI for Effective Leadership webinar. We will make a start very, very soon. Good morning. And I love that you are already very active in the chat. That's great. Perfect. Now I can see you all. So let's make a start, right? Welcome, everyone. I'm Estefania Badra. I'm a growth partner specialized in change management. So I've been helping founders and leaders and also teams to adapt to a rapid change with a focus always on people, purpose, and also transformation. So in this webinar, we will explore how AI is not here to replace us, but to amplify us. And the session will take 45 minutes. The first half an hour will be about different topics that we will touch base on with Krishna, that is in here. Hello, Krishna. So we will touch base on AI as a change agent, leadership in the age of AI, change management, and also emotional resistance. And we will reserve 15 minutes at the very end for Q&As. Okay, so that part of the session will be completely interactive. Ready? So here we have Krishna with us. Krishna, do you feel like introducing yourself real quick?
Sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Tanwani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Analytyks Inc. So, we build custom AI solutions for enterprise clients across different industries like financial services, banking, insurance. We also work with other industries like energy, mining, consumer goods, and things like that. So, personally, I have over a decade of experience in the AI and data science space. I've been doing this for a while now, and I would argue that my personal mission and advocacy is really to make AI accessible for individuals and organizations, just so that they can understand it in a practical way and actually use it to generate some impact for themselves. So I'm excited to be here today, with the Estefi today to share with you some insights on AI and leadership. So very excited for today.
Very excited to have you here, Krishna, as well. So I will dive in directly into the first topic, which is AI as a change agent. You have been implementing solutions in large companies, big brands, and I want to know your view on how do you see AI reshaping decision making today?
So definitely, I would say it's reshaping it at a faster pace than anything else that's come before because there are two key benefits to using AI for decision making. So one is that at the speed at which those decisions are generated. The second is just the vast amounts of information that it can process to generate, right, those decisions. So it's really, unprecedented, I would say, that it could give us those decisions that quickly and more accurately, and it is getting better, over time, which is also another key advantage. And the way that I look at it is that yes, AI is, helping us process all this information, but it's really there to help us make better decisions. So if we can use it to amplify, right, or to basically extend our decision-making capabilities, it really becomes a powerful tool. Just to add as well, when you talk about AI, it's also brings about other conversations around the way we think as humans. So, all these things come into play, like our own cognitive bias, like bias, other challenges that we might face with this decision making and the like. So, I think even for personally, the more I understood AI and got into it, it helped me improve my own decision making because then I started to think about if an AI system can be biased and we can introduce bias to it, what are the decisions that I make where I could potentially be biased as well? So I would say it really has a big impact in today's decision making.
Yes, you mentioned information as well, and the importance of data, right? And taking decisions, making decisions data driven. And I believe that data is the new oil. So AI is definitely helping us out with that. Can you give us like an example on when you use AI to make better decisions?
Sure. So especially for a company, I've been in this for like a long time now. So our main focus used to be on and still is on the predictive analytics side of things. So things like risk modeling for financial institutions. So basically automated credit risk approval, based on a series of factors. It could be for credit cards, it could be for loans. So we've done that. We've also done some use cases around fraud detection. So you can just imagine the vast amounts of transactions that we have, in today's day and age where our life is mostly digital. It becomes harder to track, right? These anomalous or bad actors. So we did build some, solutions around fraud detection. So again, more focus on the predictive side. Um, but in terms of like applications, I would say no matter what field or industry or department that you're working with, we've definitely touched upon some use case or the other. There's always something you can do. So even, for example, if you're in like HR and you deal with people, there's always, things you can use for understanding employees better or managing employee churn to make sure you retain them. With the ChatGPT, I would say as well in today's day and age, there's a lot of use cases as well for LLMs now where we can use it to, again, a lot of creative tasks can be done by that, but we can also use it to improve customer experience and even for like improving the learning of people in organizations. It's being used for that as well. So a lot of use cases that we've implemented. So I could go on and on talking about that, but for those of you in the audience, if you have any specific questions around industries, maybe we can cover that later as well. But definitely, there's a lot of practical use cases for AI.
Very insightful. Thank you, Krishna.
Yes. So, when we're talking about these projects and implementing these AI solutions, the one thing that always comes into mind is we do deal with different people in the organization. We deal with, members of the team. We deal with the leaders, especially. And I know, Estefi, that you're focused not just on, you have a more broad focus on digital transformation, change management, and things like that. So, just to get an idea as well of your experiences, because we might have had a different experience with the people we deal with, but for you, what's the impact of leadership on digital transformation or in implementing digital transformation?
Well, you hit the nail on the head because digital transformation, it's all about people, right? Customers and employees, but it goes around people. And when we are working within an organization, the person who's leading these people are usually leaders, managers, founders, different kind of leaders. So I will take it here, replying to your question. I will first dive into the concept of leadership that I take from John Sanger. He says that a leader must be inspiring. And then there is another book by Brené Brown, and she says that a leader needs to be vulnerable, but also have boundaries. And I'm taking these definitions and starting by here because I want to make the point to say that there is now a challenge, not only for teams, for people in general, but leaders are also worried about the impact on AI. Like nobody knows where this is going to take us. And it's new to all of us. So when the consequences so far are not here yet, and we don't know how the impact will be in the future. So driving teams now, it's more challenging than ever. So being on top of the needs of the team is crucial. And then I will say trainings. Like leaders now have it's not optional anymore. They need to provide trainings for their teams so they can go through the transition together. So this phrase that says AI won't replace you, but somebody who knows AI will. Okay, so why don't we as leaders help out teams to move forward through change with the needed information? This is when our teams can actually thrive, and this is how impactful the leadership in digital transformation is. So I think that it's becoming more important than ever to look at the human side of things. If the leader can also communicate the purpose behind the transformation, the why, that will be also useful for teams. So leaders should always be learning, and they should be as well driving their teams into the learning way.
That's actually a very interesting take. I think a lot of people ignore the people factor sometimes when it comes to digital transformation. Everyone just thinks about the tech around it. And I think that's a really great insight, especially like we do a lot of trainings as well, and we do see the value of that where I think it's very empowering when people start learning and then they can adapt to these new types of ways of doing things. So I think that's a very powerful one as well. So you spoke about it from about digital transformation and all these other things as well, but anything specific to like let's say AI adoption or in where leadership comes into ensuring that adopting that whole engagement is a successful one.
Yes, I have an example. I've been working along different industries and different company sizes, and I think that the most challenging thing as well is for the leader how to communicate change, how to find the balance between communicating the right thing, the right information for the team to feel inspired, supported, and move forward with less fears, and also keeping up with organizational politics as well, right? Rules, because the going back again to Sanger and Brené Brown, the leader must be inspiring and vulnerable, but it must have boundaries as well. So one of the biggest examples that I find is about leaders come to me to improve their communication skills. How do I say this? I don't know if my team is going to take this very well. So communication. And then another thing I will say is very challenging and very important, how to foster teams into turning turning challenges into ideas. How can they propose ideas where they see challenge, where there are challenges? So this is another thing that works wonders, and it's an actual shift when technology is changing fast. So yeah, I will say this, and I will say as well that big transitions failed due to resistance. So not being able to communicate this, to go with teams into the transition and inspire them, like give them the big picture of the change, I would say. So that's it. So now actually I have a question for you.
Yes, please go ahead.
This is part a question for you, Krishna, which is you have been deploying AI solutions directly, so you are more in the, let's say, technical side, although you're also doing training. So what's for you the role of leadership in ensuring that AI adoption is successful?
So that's actually a very good question, and I think that leadership is one of the more crucial factors. In fact, they do set the tone on how it's going to be adopted into the organization. So, throughout our experience, we've seen leaders from all of all different kinds, right? So you have leaders that are completely fearful and say, no, they're not supportive, right? But their team or their people want to use it, but they don't have that support from leadership. And that tends to be a bit more difficult to bring the change from the ground up than the other way around. So they do face a lot of resistance in that way. So it does become a challenge that way. Another thing would be to on the leadership side is that they can they I think sometimes the level of influence that they have can be a bit underrated, right? Because if you have a leader that is fearful of AI and he's showing it, then that also like drives that fear down. On the other side, if you have someone who is very excited about AI but doesn't really talk about what exactly they expect to get out of it, then that also brings a lot of uncertainty with the people that work with them. So I think having, to your point, right, having a leader that communicates exactly what benefits they want from AI, and I think, leading really the way on understanding it, right? I think a lot of the times they think, oh, it's something that's technical, let my team just understand what it is, but that's not the approach we need to take. I think even leaders should understand how to use it and what is the benefit of it so that they can also properly direct their teams into how they want to use it to improve the organization. So I would say it's that the leader sets the tone. And in relation to that, you can say that they're also setting the culture of the organization, right? Which is also crucial because if you have a leader that's open, that's continuously learning, and also builds that culture in the organization, then that's the type of culture that needs to exist for AI to thrive and for it to really be maximized. So I would say that that would be their main function. I know I've said a lot of things. It would be that, leadership sets the tone for the culture, and that's what would be that could really impact the deployment of AI solutions in any organization.
Yes, I've heard something which is very true, and I always say it, which is at the end, the team is a mirror of its leader. So you said, right, you were talking about fears and fears that leaders might be facing. So if you are this kind of fear, which is common to every human being right now, then your team will react that way. So now it's more important than ever to raise this new leadership where we embrace change and we all work together into sometimes the unknown, right? But with a learning approach, right? So now let's jump into the next topic, which is change management more in depth. So what's the number one factor to pay attention to when you're deploying AI in companies? What's like the number one factor?
So the number one factor, I would say, goes back to the culture as well, right? So it really is the main driver, I would say. So everyone talks about the tools, the technology, all of these things. A lot of the times people think that, oh, this project failed because maybe they didn't have the proper infrastructure in place or the data or anything that's really related to the technology itself. But most of the projects that we've seen, right, that really fails, it is because of that, the culture, right? Not having the right type of culture, not having the right type of mindset in terms of how you want to implement these types of solutions and things like that. So I would say that's the main factor that leads to a lot of challenges when you're actually building out these AI solutions. For that as well, you know, like I said, in order for AI to thrive, you need a mindset of experimentation, of collaboration, continuous learning. Things are always changing. So the organization needs to have that type of mindset for the adoption and for the deployment to be successful as well. The other thing that I would just like to mention here as well is that it's also on communicating clearly what the objectives are of the organization. So a lot of the times, when they're like, and I don't, I think a few of you, the audience can relate to this. Sometimes you have leaders that just go, we need to use AI, and when you try to dive deeper and say, okay, for what, or you try to, no, we just need to use AI because that's the directive, that's the hype. And that type of thing is not very useful because if it's without an objective, then it becomes harder to even understand what direction you need to take and if you even have a successful implementation. So I think, starting with the why is also very important. And again, it all goes back to having the right type of culture and mindset.
And what's the cultural shift, the most important cultural shift that needs to happen first when you're implementing AI?
That's a very good question. There's actually a lot, but I would say one of the main ones is to just create that environment or atmosphere of, there is a lot of fear surrounding it. And even, leaders and teams alike are both going into this together, right? We're all learning about this as we go along. Everything is changing so quickly. So it's having that mindset that you have to be open to learn, again, new things or new ways of doing things. I think one of the hardest things to accept sometimes is that, we don't know everything. So even if you have leaders with like 30, 40 years of experience, that experience is valuable, yes. But it's also that mindset that there are things that we also might need to learn or need to know how to use and utilize. So I think it's really creating that environment of for lack of a better term, I don't want to call this but like a safe space where both like your team, the leaders can be open enough to ask the questions that they're thinking about. Like if they're asking about, okay, we need to use AI, but be willing to also dive deeper to actually find what they want to use it for, to also communicate with their team that you know they have to be clear that okay, we want to use AI, but what is the purpose? Because for the members, a lot of the times if they're just getting their news from external sources, it's like, oh, they're just going to replace us. That's what they want to do with AI, right? But if you have an organization with a culture that says, no, we're looking at this to create value, to empower you, right, to make you perform better and do things better, then I think that really changes the narrative. And that's very powerful. So I think that's the cultural shift that needs to happen. There needs to be a culture of more openness, not just like, kind of skirting away or assuming everybody understands anything, which is equally risky. So I think having that open dialogue with both leadership and members of the organization is a good way to start, to address these things head on.
Wow.
So
Yes. That's very
yeah, so
important, Krishna. You cover like key topics.
yes, yeah. So, I think it's really, and I'm that's been my experience, right, with the leaders that I've been working with, and I've been lucky that for most of the clients I've worked with, they're actually very forward-looking leaders, and they're very passionate about their people, and they put them at the center of their decisions. But I'm also curious, in your experience, you've done a lot of things around change management. You've worked with a lot of different industries, with different companies of different sizes. So, what patterns would you see in a successful change management, implementation or project?
Okay. So I would say that any successful project process of change management will have a combination about open leaders and like leaders and teams open to learn something new, to adapt, and avoiding the phrases, oh, but we have done this way, we have done this or like this way forever. So willingness to learn, constant learning for me, it's the key, and this really sets the tone for a successful change management process. Then again, I can't reinforce how important communication is. Most of the processes fail because people don't adapt it, and people don't adapt it because there is a lack of communication, or maybe it's not the right way to do it. So communication is the key, focusing on the humans behind machines, and communicate changes clearly so they can also adapt, react, and adapt. We need to give them time. So communicate things in advance. And there is another thing that I love to mention, which is creating this psychological safety environment where people can express their fears, their emotions, the questions about the process, if they need training, if they need anything along the process. So I will sum up this by saying that the most important thing is openness to change and learn, communication, and creating a psychological safety environment. Yeah, so this actually introduces the next topic, and well, I can talk now about the emotional resistant, or the human side of it, which is emotion. So whenever I sit in a group of within like a group of people, I know that they are all going through some kind of internal doubt, like self-doubt, even fear, right? Because it's normal. It's a human nature. And I'm a big fan of roller coasters. And the first time
Me
you
too.
ride, okay,
Yeah, yeah, same. Yeah, big fan.
this is why we match so good. So
Yeah.
the first time, so now you can, I imagine that you can relate. The first time that you are actually riding a roller coaster, you have this excitement and a little bit of fear as well, because you don't know where it's going to take you. So it's about turning, like for me, change management is like it's like a roller coaster, like riding a roller coaster for the first time. You have a little bit of fear, but you can turn this into excitement for the unknown. So the thing is, how can we trick our brains into change, and realizing it that the only constant in life, and this is what I tell my teams all the time, the only constant in life is change. So we better learn how to embrace it and how to adapt to it with our own systems tailored to every person. And this is the leader's role. So this is how we can reshape, and I can be talking a long time about this, but this is how we reshape as well the feelings, right? Because the feelings is the result of emotions plus the system of thoughts that we add into it. So this brings one question, which is What do you think? Now we have talked about like the human aspect of it, and you are more in the technical side of what do you think, or what have you seen as the most common fears in this kind of transitions?
That's a good question. I really like the analogy of the roller coaster. I just wanted to mention that because I think it's a perfect way to describe, right? It's something that's unknown to us, but I think if we use it right, it could be something that's enjoyable as well and something that could benefit us and provide that for us. So, just to make sure I got the question right. So it's like, what are the fears, right? Or the key fears that are there for AI transitions? I would
Yeah,
say it all revolves around some form of like loss of control, I would say, because the question that we get asked most often is that how can I trust this machine to make the decisions for me, to provide these insights for me versus my years of experience and whatnot, right? So how can I trust it? The other way is that once they start to see the impact of it, like, okay, it's able to make these decisions, it's able to do it accurately at a speed that's really like beyond human capability, then we start thinking about, oh my God, this thing is going to replace me, right? It's going to, what is my purpose if this machine is going to be doing all these like, XYZ or these key tasks? So I think for a lot of the time, that's one of the key fears that a lot of people face. And it's not something that I would downplay or disregard because I think it's a very human fear to have. If you look at across history as well, at the onset of every new technology, we've been asking this very question, right? So every time a new technology is introduced, we ask, we worry, how it's going to impact our lives, how it's going to change things, how it's going to transform things. And, I think that's a very human thing to be worried about. But I think the key goal is to find some sort of balance because we need to find a balance between, yes, we understand that these are the fears, but how do we, make the most of using this technology to actually benefit us? So if you think about it, like we look at the internet, which was like a very transformative technology, right? From decades ago. And even when it was out, there's a lot of fear. You can look at the sci-fi around it. There's always been a lot of fear around, oh, what would this lead to? Or if can someone, get all my information now remotely, like all of these sort of fears. But, to even suggest that, hey, should we turn off the internet because of this could happen? Would be absurd at this point. And I think if everyone there'd be like riots all over the world, right? So I think we need to look at AI the same way that it is a technology and that we need to see how we can use it to our benefit. So at the end of the day, any technology that exists really for our benefit and our purpose, right? Even from the Stone Age to all the tools created to the Industrial Revolution, at the end of the day, it did change the way how we live, but it never removed us out of the equation. So I do think there's a lot of fear mongering around AI, but at the end of the day, if a company implements an AI solution, it is to benefit a human at that endpoint, right? It could be a customer, it could be an employee, it could be someone, or even themselves. But I think we shouldn't forget that the human part of it should be always like central to it.
Wow, you touch base on very important topics, and I love this point of view on everything is to benefit humans at the end. And then you remind me of 31st of December 1999 that there was craziness,
Yes.
right? A whole craziness because we thought that the world would end with the machines. Like we didn't know what to expect, right? Turning into the new century. So you remind me of that, and then there was I was in Spain a few weeks back when there was a power outage, and we ran out of internet, electricity, everything. So yes, people were a little bit concerned. For me, it was great because I took the opportunity to do offline things, which is actually good. Sometimes. So I love this approach of the human-centered approach behind the AI media. We are out of time for a webinar. I will just wrap up here, saying that at the end, like I want to give a hope message for the audience and wrap up the leadership part by saying that the most important thing now for a leader, in my perspective and my experience, is sharing energy, like transferring this energy to the team so they are inspired by changes, creating a psychological safety environment that will drive to more trust among the team members, then going through the change together. So training, sharing the vision, sharing the direction, the why. And then this leader now needs to take initiative and it needs to be resilient as well, right? So recover fast from setbacks. So we as leaders are role models. We are the champions of change. And it's equally important to recognize achievements from our teams. And when there is drive and attitude towards them, this also should be recognized. So yeah, and closing with communication. What's for you, and this is the final one, what's for you the biggest lesson or one message that you want to share with the audience, Krishna?
Okay, so I think I would start off with, whether you're a leader or an employee or like, you're working for a company, AI isn't here to replace us. I would say it's here to elevate what we do, right? That's the biggest takeaway. At the end of the day, we look at it as a tool. And I think Estefi brought this up as well, right? It's not being replaced by AI, but it's being replaced by someone who knows how to use it. So I think learning about it, learning, maybe going over that fear and just learning how you can implement it or use it for your organization or department, I think that brings it a bit closer to home. So it makes it a bit less scary. So when you try to see how to use it for your own, maybe your own function or your own department, and you can see how it can actually generate, some sort of impact that will hopefully alleviate, right, some of the fear and make it and turn it in, from a thing to fear to a thing to help us instead. I think I'd like to really end with that. And in any case, I know that um, it's really hard to think of it this way, but be optimistic, right? I think as humans, we need to naturally be optimistic and always believe that things will be used for the good, things will be used for the better. Might be harder to believe at this point in time, but for me, personally, I'm what I like to call annoyingly optimistic. So that's what I like to leave everyone with here that, AI is the trend now. There's going to be some technology in the future that's going to be there again. Just be optimistic and trust that, if we use it properly, it can benefit all of us.
Thank you so much, Krishna. This has been so insightful, very useful. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I love all your points and the things that you mentioned. Now, I'm opening the
Thank you as well.
floor. Thank you. I'm now opening the floor to the audience. So if you have any questions, feel free to either drop it in the chat, open your mic and your camera, and talk to us. We are humans. We are not clones. This is
Yes,
me.
please. Don't be
This is
afraid of us.
we're not robots. We're human beings. So
Yes.
if you have any, take your time. We will be here for 10 more minutes. We can take in your questions. Maybe you have fears, concerns, some example that you want to share.
While waiting for questions, it might also be interesting. I'll just share my LinkedIn for those of you that might need to ponder a bit about your questions before asking it. Feel free to connect as well. Yeah, maybe if you'd like to share it as well, Steffi.
A question. Yes, great, Krishna. Please make sure to drop your
Yeah.
LinkedIn profile. Amazing. So there is a question. Thanks, Juliana. So the question is, how do you deal with leaders that are not willing to show themselves as vulnerable, but want to make changes in their companies? Wow, boom. Great question.
That
Great
is an
question.
amazing question. I think it's Steffi. I'll let you take this one first.
Wow. This touches very interesting and human side of it, which is we don't want to expose ourselves. We don't enjoy being vulnerable because, to be honest, being vulnerable is not that nice. Recognizing that you have fears and there is uncertainty is not nice, mostly as a leader, because you have the responsibility to drive your team forward and drive the organizational values forward. So there are ways to tweak it, I will say. There are communication tricks at the end. I will say, because, and in here, of course, it goes a little bit more in depth about the reason on why the leader doesn't want to show up as vulnerable to their team. Maybe he doesn't feel the trust himself. Maybe there are some other things like going underneath this need to hide. But it's a practice that I embrace. All the leaders that are showing this webinar that are now here with us, or they are showing the webinar, or they are watching the webinar, that there is a practice around being able to display and talk about changes and uncertainty in an open way without going to the maybe the emotional and the most sensitive part of it. So what I would say is, and a quick tip, something that I use a lot is for the leaders to write down the fears around vulnerability. What do you want to communicate to your team? How this is affecting you personally? And then how can you tweak your words, select the right words to communicate this effectively without generating more chaos in your team slash organization. I don't know if this replied to your question, or if Krishna, you want to add anything to here.
I think that was perfect. I was taking down notes as well. I was like, I will remember that because we do deal with a lot of leaders that do have that. And yeah, I think that was a great answer. Really not much to add. I think I was really learning from that. But in our experience, you're right. It is very hard to show that vulnerability, and sometimes we kind of act like we're not human. We need to like put on that show. But I think you're right by addressing it like head on, or at least writing it down. Until you don't know what you're trying to solve, right? Then it becomes harder to solve it. So I think by writing it down, that's a great point, and how you can finally start to go beyond that. So yeah, that's I think perfect. Any other questions from the audience that you might be interested in, or you could write your vulnerabilities and fear as well. Maybe we can see how we can address that. So yeah, please feel free to add that in the chat, or turn on your mic. We can turn this into a conversation.
While we wait for questions, I just want to remind ourselves that at the end, we are all human. We are all going through some kind of situation sooner or later, and changes are happening. They're happening fast. So it's about learning, adapting, as well, reaching out to the right people to support you. So I want to say that.
Yeah, beautifully said, I think.
Amazing. And there are no more questions. Oh, there's one more
Okay.
question. Let me read
Okay,
it.
so let's see. Would you like to read it, or?
Yeah, I will read it. I will read it because I think
Okay.
that this one is for you. When trading leaders on the new AI performance platform, what are the top advice slash practice you would tell them to focus on? And also, what advice slash practice you would warn them not to rely on too much? Thank you so much for your question.
Yes, I think so too. So when training leaders on the new AI performance platform, okay, so from what I understand, right? So for on using any sort of new AI solution, right, or platform, how can we, what are the top things you tell them to focus on? So I think I'll start with that question, and I'd always, like to say, focus on the practical, right? So you don't need to know everything there is to know about AI in order for you to use it, right? That's the first thing I think we need to like clarify, because then you'll hit roadblocks, sorry. So like for example, if you think you have to build your own algorithm in order, or you need to build your own thing from scratch for you to just be able to implement something, then of course that's something that's not true, right? There's a lot of things built out for us. So I think the top advice that I would really give anyone who is learning, not just leaders, but anyone who's learning about AI in any sort of platform, it's that try to focus on how you can use it to help you, what you're trying to achieve. Try to research on that a bit, because if you know what your goals are, then it really it doesn't narrow down, but it helps you focus on what matters, right? Because if you're going to if you don't have that in mind and you're trying to really get a very broad perspective, then it's easy to get lost. So I would say, focus on, one or two goals, even if you're just learning as an independent learner or something like that. Maybe focus on trying to do something that interests you, right? Like a hobby or something, so you know what to focus on. And again, always focus on the practical. Try understand what you're trying to achieve. That's really the best thing that I can say there. What advice or practice you'd warn them not to rely on too much? So I would say when it comes to this, and even when we do our trainings, right, a lot of the times we think that, looking at maybe I'm like trying to answer this, you'd warn them not to rely on too much. Great. So again, the goal of AI is not to completely replace us, right? Or to replace our decision-making capabilities. It's there to help us make better decisions. So one thing that I would mention is in whatever they're building, whatever they're looking at, have them understand to verify, right? Even when we build out solutions, we don't just leave it in the dark and assume it's 100% correct. No, we have to verify how much can we rely on these, whether these models or this solution. So I think having that practice of validation is something that should be inbuilt. The other thing, especially since this is focused on the learning side of things, is that don't be afraid to look at resources and things online, to help you perform that better. So we used to teach a lot of like Python coding, and we still do till today. And sometimes they think it's cheating if you're like looking online for a resource or looking at a cheat sheet, but that's really not the case, right? You use what's available to you so that you can make your life easier. At the end of the day, we're more goal driven, right? So whatever you can do to achieve that goal, then that's what you would need to focus on. So use the tools at your disposal. I hope I answered that. But if there's anything that's not clear, please feel free to add a follow up or anything.
Thank you, Krishna. I love this approach. Let us know, Jofar, if everything is fine or if you have like follow-up questions. I will add only the fact that when we are training leaders on AI performance platforms as well, we need to mention the need to, again, bring into the equation the human side of it. Because performance, of course, is about like numbers and measures, but sometimes and mostly leadership today requires presence to be with people and know like maybe the performance is dropping considerably, and sometimes, well, most of the times, it's really a matter of attention and presence with that person in particular, so you can understand really what's going on about this. So I will mention even in the training, I'm always giving the human side, but in the training I will mention as well, hey, remember that we are all like behind of the screen, there are people as well. So yes, avoid making, I would say, I would warn them not to rely on data only, like go to the human as well. I hope that that was clear too.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
excellent.
so there's no more
Yeah.
time, but
There's no more questions. Yeah.
yes, if any of you have follow-up questions, please feel free to drop them in LinkedIn. You can also contact us. We are in, and I will be happy to take your questions or anything that might arise um, in the following minutes or even days. So thank you so much. I'm really
Thank
excited
you. Yes.
about this webinar. Thank you so much, Krishna, for
Yeah.
your
Thank you,
contribution
Steffi.
to it.
Thank you for the very engaging conversation.
It was very nice. And thank you so much, amazing attendees. And you made great questions. So thank you, Shiliana, Jofar, Jaira, and Vishnu. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.